Human Battery Show. This is the inaugural episode, and I am your host, Dr. Stefano Sinacropi. I'm an orthopedic spine surgeon by trade, but passion is wellness and getting the world better, getting you better, getting your health better. And we're going to talk so much over the next several years about everything health and wellness on this program. We are on AM 950 radio. Could not be more excited about getting this show underway and so excited to share what we're going to be doing. Now, recharging the human battery. What's that all about? What does that even mean? Well, in our daily lives, what do we do from the first minute that we wake up? We make sure everything is recharged. We recharge our cell phones. We recharge our computers. We just are always looking for that plug to charge something in. No matter what you use, you're recharging something. But what are we not focusing on? We really are doing a poor job of focusing on recharging ourselves. And what does this lead to? This leads to burnout. This leads to a general unease and unhappiness about our lives and what's going on. And ultimately, what does it lead to? It leads to poor physical and mental health. And we have a serious problem with chronic disease in our country. And a lot of it is because we are really not taking care of ourselves the way we should. Now, there's a lot of factors out there that are involved in us having gotten to the point where we're really struggling with getting over our chronic disease crisis. If you look at all of the diseases out there, it continues to really grow year after year, despite how much resource we are throwing at this problem. Now, I am a spine surgeon by trade, but now I'm diving into this new avenue of health and wellness because for the last 18 years in practice, all I've seen are folks getting sicker and sicker. And at some point, I just had to stand up and say, I need to do something about this. We need to do better. And so, hence, started a podcast of my own, started talking about this openly on LinkedIn, opened up wellness clinics, which we'll talk about, coming up over the future. But ultimately, it is about recharging the human battery. And I'm very thankful to AM 950 Radio for allowing me to do this program on their show. How do we recharge the human battery? That's what we're going to be talking about. It's going to be a multi-pillar approach. It's going to be getting our physical selves better, getting our nutrition better, recharging our mental health, recharging our spiritual health. We put these four pillars together and really figure out how to make ourselves well again, think ourselves well, and on top of that, add biohacking uh, devices and other things that can really help to expedite this. We can be so much better. We can get so much healthier. We can reverse the epidemic of chronic disease that is ravaging our communities, our society, and is in some ways just completely overburdening our medical system. So let's together bring on guests, bring on speakers, bring on anybody that can help us to put this all together and to figure out how we can recharge ourselves and just plain old be happier. Now, on that note, when we come back, we're really going to dive into why this project, what is the problem, and what are we going to do about it. All right, and welcome back to Recharging the Human Battery on 950 AM radio. Dr. Sinacropi here, and this is the first episode, like I said before, and we've got so much to talk about. I don't know if I have enough time to get through everything I really want to say, but Hopefully, if you tune in on a weekly basis, you'll over time get everything you need to recharge your own batteries and just lead better lives yourselves and for your families. And so let's start with a little bit about who I am. Okay, this is not really about talking about my background, but I think it's important to know who I am and why I'm so passionate about doing, what I'm doing now. And so I am originally from the Bronx, New York, grew up in a blue collar community, had a very interesting upbringing, which I'll talk about on future shows. Eventually decided I wanted to be a physician and was blessed to be able to get into Columbia University College of Physicians and Surgeons, trained there, then went on to orthopedic surgery residency, and then off to the Kenton D. Leatherman Spine Fellowship in Louisville, Kentucky, where I trained with both neurosurgeons and orthopedic surgeons in everything spine surgery. It was an amazing experience, both my residency at Columbia and then at Louisville. Really was able to train with some of the best surgeons in the world and could not be more thankful for that opportunity. Now, I eventually took a position at Midwest Spine and Brain Institute, which currently serve as the president and CEO of. Been there for 18 years. So, in my first 5 years as a spine surgeon, um, our main objective and goal is to become the best surgeons that we can be. And so our focus at that time, my focus was absolutely becoming the best technical surgeon I can, understanding who needs surgery, who doesn't, and doing the best job I can, learning minimally invasive surgery techniques and a whole host of technical things. The next 5 years, you feel much more of an expert, and the focus is on practice building. And so, again, I wore my hat as an orthopedic spine surgeon, built a large practice, love taking care of patients, love doing spine surgery, love hearing people's stories, and trying to restore their lives and function as best I can. Now, what really stood out, even from the beginning to me, I started asking myself the question, why are people so ill? Why are they unhappy? Why are they sick? Why are they on a long medication list? And started asking questions. So, my first dive into the health and wellness kind of arena was in diet and exercise. As somebody that's always been keen on dieting and exercise myself, it's something I was very comfortable talking about initially with my patients. And I started really counseling them. How do you exercise? How do you diet? And started recommending things like paleo diet. And then eventually we went to intermittent fasting diet, as there's so much amazing data on that. We're going to be dissecting intermittent fasting up and down on this show, and we're going to be talking about veganism. We're going to be talking about ketogenic diets, how those can benefit you, especially for mental health. Just so many different topics. But the more I asked questions that were outside of my lane, the more I became bothered. And first, I was somewhat bothered, and then I started becoming incredibly bothered. So the next step was starting to do some obesity counseling on patients, because so many of our patients are obese and having trouble with their backs and other areas of their spine. And then putting them on diet specifically, we started giving them pamphlets and handouts and all kinds of stuff. I started recommending them to go on Amazon and buy certain books that I would recommend for them to make certain lifestyle changes and things like that. Now, as I became more and more comfortable in my practice and things started going on autopilot, I really started asking some deep questions. And so, asking more questions about mental health, more questions about their diabetes and how that was being managed. I was asking them questions about how their hypertension was being managed. I would say, ma'am, why are you on these 5 medicines? And, most of the times patients had no idea. They just knew that they took their yellow pill at 9 and then they took their green pill at 10:30 and so on and so forth. I started asking way more questions about opioid use because, as you know, in the world of spine, when people have severe problems, they end up being on opioids. And many times people were seeing me for the first time and they were on a lot of opioids. So, really became an expert on opioid management and how we try to improve and mitigate the use of opioids. Now, all that being said, it all came together. And some point a couple years ago, I got into the world of biohacking personally for myself. And that included things like red light therapy or photobiomodulation, oxygen therapy, laser therapy, all kinds of other things, which I'm going to get to in a little bit here. And that then allowed me to start counseling patients on other easier biohacks that they can do in addition to dietary changes and exercise and other things where they can make their lives better. Now, it wasn't until last year that it all boiled over. The more I asked questions, the more upset I would get, the more I would have sleepless nights. And I really would want to know, how can I help people more? How can I help people better? So at some point, I made the decision that it wasn't enough for me to just talk to my own patients. I had learned enough about these other aspects of medicine, of health and wellness, of biohacking, that I just made the decision that because I had a platform, because I was a known commodity here in the Twin Cities, people knew me, knew what I was doing in spine surgery, spoke often to many different groups. I decided that I could make a much bigger difference if I made the commitment to go out there and speak my mind, both on social media, and then decided to start a podcast of my own, which is titled Wellness at the Speed of Light. And one day I just decided, you know what? I'm going to go on social. I'm going to post that I'm going to start this podcast and that I'm going to try to tell the world stories from experts, from people, from anybody that I thought needed to be heard. And I made that commitment to be out there talking about health and wellness and how we can overcome this plague of chronic disease that is absolutely ravaging our society. Now, I knew there was going to be some serious challenges. We have an ingrained medical system that works the way it works. We spend $4.4 trillion on what could only be called the sick care system, right? Our system now is really designed to treat you and your families when you become ill. Most of the dollars that are spent in healthcare are spent on treating the result, the sequela of poor lifestyle choices, of having not managed certain chronic things in the correct way, and then they boil over, and then you become sick, and then you need the care of a physician. Now, before I get into my frustration with the current medical system, what I'd like to say is we have an amazing medical system here in the United States, which is incredible, incredible at treating acute illness. So if you're involved in a car accident, if you have a massive heart attack or stroke or things like that, boy, our system is excellent. If you need the care of surgeons to reconstruct any part of your body, your spine, your foot, do a liver transplant and whatnot, it is an amazing medical system. So I am very much traditionally trained and still deeply, deeply believe in the Western medical system, and millions of lives have been saved and depend on our care to make them better. Now, where has the medical system failed? And I don't know how else to put it. Now, per capita, we spend more in the United States per capita on medical care than anywhere else in the world. But yet, you look at the chronic disease problem, you look at things like obesity, diabetes, mental health issues of all types, they are going in the wrong direction at the same time that we're spending more than anybody else. Now, it does not take a Nobel laureate, it doesn't take the smartest person in the room to understand that something is wrong. It's no different than if you have a major league franchise or if you have an NBA franchise and you are spending more than anybody in the league and you're last in your division. Something is wrong. Something needs to change. Now, if we look at how sick people really are, it is somewhat shocking. Only 12% of Americans in cross sectional studies are actually considered metabolically healthy. And that is when you look at things like blood pressure, cardiovascular disease, obesity measurements, their blood sugar levels, things like that. 12% of us are healthy. Okay. Which means that 88% of us are taking time bombs if we're not doing the right things and can then become ill with chronic diseases. 43%. Okay. I'm going to say it 43% of the 100, equating to 133 million people have one or more chronic illnesses. Okay. This is a major problem. And that's why I go back to this notion that we, for acute care, are an amazing, amazing place to be. For chronic diseases, how in the world are 43%, okay, of the people having chronic illness? Okay. This goes back to our lifestyle choices. This goes to our physical health, our mental health, and other things that we're exposed to. Now, why am I so frustrated? I am frustrated because I am an insider. I cannot be more of an insider in this community. Not only am I an insider as a spine surgeon and physician that understands the medical world and speaks to physicians all day, every day, and speaks to patients all day, every day, but I'm also an insider as far as being a administrator in our group. As the president and CEO of our group, I sit in boardrooms. I understand what the discussions are. I understand what is going on in healthcare. And what is crystal clear is we are spending so much of our time thinking about medication management, surgical procedures, things like acute care, this and that, but way too little time thinking about preventative care and recharging the human battery of people. When I talk to my patients, as not as a physician, okay, as a human being that is very much wanting for the best for people, I will tell you, I can't say this any other way. When I ask people about their understanding of things like diet, how does your diet affect your life? How does your lifestyle affect your life? How does your chronic stress affect your life? Do you know anything about biohacking? Do you know what hypertension does to you over the long term? Do you understand your diabetes management? Do you understand what is going on with your mental health and what are your treatments? The level of understanding, unfortunately, in our society is so rudimentary. It's so small that I am shocked. And I cannot tell you how much time I'm spending with patients right now trying to educate them on their lifestyle and how it's going to impact the rest of their lives. In fact, one of the things I've been doing recently, you're going to hear a lot about this over the course of the show, is how I ask them to think about if we could show them a movie in 20 years. And if that movie included them having no legs because they're not managing their diabetes well, or includes them being in an ICU because they've allowed their heart disease to go out of control and not made the appropriate changes for that, or we show them having Alzheimer's disease when they're 55 years old because Alzheimer's disease, now known as type 3 diabetes, is something that we can do something about. And we are going to have guests that are going to talk about it. And these concepts are things that are so, it just is so not understood. My mission is going to be to make these things understood. And I want to really capture this in my in a just in a different way, in a way that is going to make people fired up. Let's build an army of health and wellness and recharging batteries and things like that. And the only way we're going to do it is to, is to have lively discussions about how little we know, understand how little we know, and then we can actually, do something about it. Now, going back to, chronic disease in the US, it's not just about each of us as individuals getting sicker. What it is doing to our hospital systems, to our society. Think about a society where 43% of us are sick. Our hospitals are filled with a bunch of people that have preventable diseases because a large percentage of chronic diseases are absolutely preventable. This is fact, not fiction. Okay. Think about what it's doing to our productivity as a nation or as a productivity in any nation, right? But let's stay, in America here since we're here. What's it doing to our daily productivity? What's it doing to our happiness? What's it doing to our relationships? Okay? And so the impact on public health is massive of not recharging our batteries, not taking care of ourselves, not leading good lifestyles. And so we have to take that all into account when we are thinking about how much of a crisis this is. And it is an emergency. There's no other way to say it. I'm going to jump up and down. Sometimes you're going to hear me say things that, you may say, why is he upset? Why is he not happy? Because sometimes I just hear things, I can't take it. I just boil over with just wanting to shout, how can this happen? How can we have let this happen? If you just look at obesity and you compare our obesity rate right now to what it was in 1980, it's jaw dropping. I don't know how we can talk about other things. If we look at our diabetes crisis, let's compare it to 1980. Shocking, absolutely shocking. Alzheimer's disease, mental health diseases, the amount of medication use. I mean, it is unbelievably out of control right now. And that's why my previous podcast, that's why this radio show on AM 950 radio, that's why I'm so excited, to move forward with this. Now, I am going to try to talk science. We're going to try to use the facts, but sometimes, we're going to talk about things that, is somewhat, people will take it as controversial, but guess what? I'm going to back it up with facts. Every time our guests are going to come on, we're going to have facts. We're going to dissect things. We're going to dissect articles. We're going to dissect things that you see in the news. And we're going to say what's true, what's not true, what's BS, and what is real, and what are the things we really need to be thinking about. So one of my concerns, which I'll really talk about, is we as a society have become in some ways brainwashed to think that we always need the easy button to get our way out of everything, right? And so it happens to be that in the world of medicine, health, and wellness, the easy button is taking a pill, right? The easy button maybe is even doing a procedure, but I would say, pills are more. And so we have to think about, is the easy button something that's going to get us out of this crisis? And I will tell you, as a physician who sees patients every day, there is no easy button for this crisis. Okay. And if somebody invents the easy button, great. It's all fixed. We don't need the show anymore. And I can do something else. I can go relax or, get a cabin or travel and I'm not needed. But unfortunately, there is no easy button. And so we need to think about real solutions to this problem. We need to think about, how did we get to the point where our society is almost oblivious to how bad things are, but almost oblivious to the choices that we're making and how outside influences are making us make poor choices. Okay. So, some of it, yeah, people want to go around and say it's this person's fault or they did it to themselves or they did this and that. Yeah, I talk like that sometimes. And I just say, listen, we're doing it to ourselves. Chronic disease is our own issue. However, let's not be naive and think that there are not forces out there that are obviously trying to make us think a certain way. So let's think about who's advertising out there, who is behind the sponsorship of even our biggest institutions that are supposed to be out here making medical recommendations. What are the roles of big food? What is pharma's role in all of this? We're obviously going to dissect it on the show. And I can tell you, I've had some guests on my other podcast. I had one guest who I encourage everybody to go out and get his book, and it's called Lies I Told in Medical School. His name is Dr. Robert Lufkin. Amazing guest on my Wellness at the Speed of Light podcast show. And he pretty much broke it down. And he started talking about different organizations that are out here making, for example, dietary recommendations, and yet big food companies are the ones that are behind their sponsorship. So we have to think about, where is this information coming from and how to put it all together in a way that's digestible for our audience so that you can make appropriate decisions in your lifestyle to be able to be the CEO of your own healthcare. And I have to thank Margaret Wallace, who really put me onto that term, and I'm going to be using it. I probably will say that on every single show because it's really, what we are all about on this program. I want to empower you to become the CEO of your own health management, because no one is going to look out for you better than you. And the better you educate yourself on what is out there and what is there to offer you health, wellness, well-being, just living a better life for you, yourself and your family, that's what we're really going to really dissect. So what are some of the things that we're really going to focus on this show? So number one, this show is really going to be a combination of looking at the best in Western medicine. We're going to talk to experts that are really doing innovative techniques in the medical world. I'm going to try to focus on a lot of guests here from the Twin Cities, but we'll have guests from all over the country, obviously, that are doing amazing things, that are classically Western trained doctors. We're going to be talking Eastern medicine doctors. We're going to be talking acupuncture on this show, which is just a fascinating subject. We're going to talk to politicians. We're going to bring on company CEOs. We're going to talk to individuals who have made amazing turnarounds on their own health journey. How did they do it? How did they make the turnaround? We're just going to talk to anybody that we think can help you to make decisions on your own health and well-being, because that's what it's all about. Because if you don't have that, you don't have anything. You can't do anything. Here, let's do a little exercise. For those of you that are feeling well right now, think about when you had the flu or when you had COVID or whatever, and you were feeling awful. Imagine feeling like that all the time. Were you worried about like what purse you were going to buy? Were you worried about items? Were you worried about anything? Were you worried about your bank account? No, you were just worried about getting better. If you don't feel well, everything falls apart. So we want to figure out the right people to get on, the right guests, all this stuff to be able for you to make decisions, again, to be CEOs of your own healthcare. And I apologize because I'm going to be saying that quite a bit. Now, we're going to take all of these guests and we're going to try to weave it into a narrative of thinking about how do all these things really cross connect? How do we get all of these different specialties and groups and politicians that are making, the policy? How do we get them together with Eastern providers and Western providers and everybody to get this beautiful web of people talking to each other, not being threatened with each other, and then coming up with plans and strategies to educate you to lead better lives. Another thing that we're really going to be talking about is one of my favorite passions, and that's biohacking. Okay, there's going to be a lot of shows dedicated to different biohacking devices. What is biohacking? Biohacking is basically biology means it's biology, living tissue. How do we hack that? What are modalities that we can use to basically, I don't want, it's almost a cheat code. I don't like to use the word cheat. That has a negative connotation, but that's really what it is. For those of you that play video games, you understand that, right? When you have the cheat code, it's a lot easier to get to that point. So if you have a nutritional program that helps you to improve your mitochondrial health, another word we're going to be using a lot of, mitochondria, which is the powerhouse of the cell. Imagine diet, exercise, improving your mental health, all those things. But now you're using the cheat code to use things like red light therapy or photobiomodulation, which again, let's break down that word: photo, light, bio, living tissue, modulation. So we can change living tissues. We can change the way your cells work by using something like photobiomodulation to literally change the way your mitochondria work, change the way your cells behave, and improve all types of ailments, from musculoskeletal pain to concussion to injury recovery to post-infectious diseases like Lyme's disease and post-COVID syndrome, and all kinds of things that we're really going to delve into on this show. Talk about oxygen therapy, hyperbaric chambers. We're going to be talking about um, pulsed electromagnetic frequency devices, structured water therapy, cold plunges, bringing on guests, all kinds of things. We're going to be talking about vagal nerve stimulation and all kinds of other things. And I'm going to be the first to tell you, I raised my hand 2 years ago. If you had asked me about this stuff, I would have just looked at whoever's asking me and said, come on, I'm not going to be involved in these things. This is smoke and mirrors. This is pseudoscience. I'm going to tell you on the record, I've said this many times on the record, these modalities that we're going to talk about, every single thing that I bring here, scientifically vetted. We're going to talk the science, the data, the information. It is not pseudoscience. It's real hardcore science, and it needs to be brought to light. And it is an emergency, like I said before. And we're going to treat it like an emergency on the show, because you know what? You feeling better, your family feeling better. If that's not your top priority, I don't know what is your top priority. So let's really focus on that. Back to the biohacks. We really are going to really key in on how to integrate becoming a biohacker of your body with the other pillars, which again, your physical health, exercise and wellness, your nutritional health, which is going to focus on microbiome health, what your nutritional intakes are. We're going to talk about, protein management, how to work on that, and so on and so forth, different supplements and other things you should be putting in your body to be working at optimum functioning. We're going to be talking about your mental health, bringing on mental health providers, talking everything about the human brain and how we can improve your mental health, which unfortunately is so overlooked in our society. And we're also going to talk about really the lack of enough mental health providers and funding for mental health projects to be able to really focus on our mental health crisis, which again, we could do a whole entire other show on the mental health crisis. And then this spiritual health. Now, some of you are religious, some of you are agnostic. Spiritual health is much deeper than that. We're going to talk about vibrational energy and how being positive and using positive self-talk and all these other things, they change literally your biology. You are flooded with the hormones of love versus the hormones of stress. And we're really going to talk about that. Stress management is going to be such an important topic on this, makes such a difference. And then stress management and everything I just mentioned, it all changes the expression of your genes. There's an entire science called epigenetics, and that is how everything that you do turns genes on and off only a small percentage of your genetic makeup is fixed. A lot of it are genes you turn on and off. A lot of the development of cancer is because the wrong gene was turned on and the right gene was turned off. A lot of all these diseases that we're going to be really delving into, it's epigenetics. And if we make our environment better internally by focusing on all of the topics we're going to cover, then we're going to turn on the right genes. We're going to flood our bodies with the right hormones of love and happiness and joy, and it's going to lead to well-being. It's going to lead to reduction in chronic diseases. It's going to lead to such a change. And boy, if just in doing this radio show here and getting these guests on, even if we can make a difference in a small fraction of our population, every second of this is going to be worth it. So I'm really excited for you really joining us on this journey. And I really hope you turn in. So I am excited about bringing this all together. I'm excited about what we can do. I'm looking for you to really be engaged in this. We are going to respond to all your comments. We are going to really be engaged with you. If you want to see somebody on this program, please let us know. I don't think that Joe Rogan's going to be coming on anytime soon. So really, we want guests that you are aware of, that you've heard, that have changed your life and the way you think. And I'd love to hear from you on people that we should, consider being on the show. And again, we're going to really, really dive into both the technical world of surgery, new innovations, all kinds of things. But a lot of this is really going to be focusing on what we haven't focused on enough of, and that's prevention, health, educating our communities, getting out into communities, especially disadvantaged communities that have even less of an opportunity to hear this. And I'm really hoping that not only the general public follows this show, listens to this show, tries to be engaged with this show, but I really would love for my colleagues in the medical community, whether you're physicians of any background, any specialty, whether you're physician extenders, nurses, chiropractors, spiritual healers, whoever you are, whatever you do out there, I'd love to hear from you guys. Let's get engaged. Let's have a dialogue. Let's make a difference. We've got so much work to do. It is going to just be such a privilege and honor for me, to do this with you. And the more engaged you are, the better this is all going to come together. In our next segment, I'd love for you guys to learn a little bit about Mandy Dickey, who is going to be my co-host on the show. She is a nurse practitioner who is an absolute expert in brain wellness and brain health. And she is actually going to be appearing on episode 2 of this show. And we are going to talk everything brain health coming up. But on our next segment, I'm going to tell you a little bit about her, a little bit about her story before we get into her episode, which you guys need to turn into for next week. And welcome back, everyone, to Recharging the Human Battery as we get ready to wrap up show number 1. Thanks for being with us today on AM 950 Radio. I am super thrilled right now to have Mandy Dickey sitting in front of me. She is a nurse practitioner that I got to know actually through Midwest Spine and Brain. She unfortunately has gone through her own trials and tribulations, and I'm not going to spoil that for you because she is going to be with me all episode number 2. But she now is with us at the Hypercharge Centers of Wellness trying to help people through biohacking and other things. She has an amazing brain wellness podcast, which we're going to get into on the next episode because I want everybody to go to her show and listen to that. It is an awesome, awesome show with amazing guests on it. And on that note, I just want to say hello. Thank you for coming in today. I look forward to seeing you next week on our episode. So, can you tell us a little bit about why you are so excited about brain health, a little bit about your show, and a little bit about your excitement to be on Recharging the Human Battery as we really get through some amazing guests?
Absolutely. I'm so glad to be here with you today as well. So I have been working in neuroscience as and healthcare for 25 years, and it's always been in neuroscience, and I've always loved it. I fell in love with the brain pretty much as soon as I learned about it. So having the opportunity to share and educate other people about it in any way is an exciting opportunity for me. I started my podcast a little over a year and a half ago because of that same fact. I got tired of just being able to educate the people in my own facility and wanted to expand the knowledge base where I get it out to. And the guests that I've had on the show have been amazing. I've had colleagues of mine, I've had peers of mine, as well as people who've had experiences with different neurological diseases and mental health illnesses. And it's exciting to hear from both sides. And it just makes it so open for all of the listeners so that no matter what level they're at, they can get something out of the show. And being here and being at Hypercharge, being at Midwest Brain initially, Spine and Brain, it was so cool to have those different opportunities. And having my own experience going through Hypercharge as a client, it's been really just an exceptional experience to be able to bring that same kind of care to other people.
Well, you know what? I am so excited to have you here. You're going to be sitting with me co-hosting, a bunch of these, and we're, together, I think we really can get the message out. You have a very different perspective having gone through your own situation, being on the other side, seeing so many providers, seeing what the healthcare system is all about. And again, I don't want to spoil our next episode, but how frustrating is the status quo right now in just 60 seconds?
Oh, there are improvements for sure, but it's definitely not where I wanted it to be, and it's taking entirely longer than I thought it was going to as well.
Yeah, and absolutely. And you know what? Your story is going to be so interesting for, our listeners and viewers to hear. But there are hundreds of thousands, millions in the United States, millions of people across the world that are suffering from all kinds of things, chronic illnesses, post injuries, and man, they need help. And there's so much available out there that they don't know about. They need to be made aware. They need to be educated, and we need to help them to cut through the misinformation because it is an absolute jungle out there. It is a maze. I love the, like a maze diagram. That is people navigating through our current healthcare system, navigating through social media, navigating through Google, through websites, through other stuff. How in the world are people supposed to know, like what's real and what's false? And honestly, I'm glad you're here with me. We're going to try to help to cut through the noise. And I can't say it any other way. It's an emergency. We're going to get to the bottom of it, and we're going to do it right here on Recharging the Human Battery, AM 950 radio. Myself, Mandy, you as our partners, people coming in here as our partners. Together, let's make a difference. Let's make the world a better place, and let's get well.